First up, I guess we'll talk about the ballot. So I did just give you an update for the Democratic ballot. I'm sorry, Jamie, I didn't give you one. Oh, there you go. We did have officially 3 of the presidential candidates withdraw from the Pennsylvania ballot. So I do present that to you. I will let you know I do have it upstairs now with Luz to double check all my Spanish. I had it for 4 years, but yeah, you know how that goes. So what I would like is the board to give approval for the ballot with maybe the request that giving me the authorization if there are any changes that come in that they did not yet give to us, that I could go ahead and make those changes and move forward. Otherwise, I would have to come back in 2 weeks.
And the changes would be deletions of candidates?
Right, withdrawals.
Okay.
Yeah, so yesterday was the last day, and the state gave us a list towards the end of the day yesterday. That's why I gave you those updates that I made this morning. But it's possible that there could be other withdrawals that they have not given to us yet. I know there's one challenge for one petition for Laura Quick in the Democratic side for the 9th representative in the 9th district. I do not believe that even if she loses that will take her off. I think it just would make that petition invalid. What we got so far in that is that she is still on. So, but I have to have all that stuff cleared up before I can really officially do anything.
Okay. Mr. Litz?
Yes. Michael, can you explain the process for the Democratic delegates? For instance, if Buttigieg, thank you, close, I guess, withdrew, but his delegates are still listed.
Yes.
How does that impact the election?
Very good question. So the Department of State actually gives us those lists and who's committed to whom. And they have informed us that they are working on that now, and if there are any changes, then they'll let us know. So kind of with the part and course of what I was asking before is if they do give me those changes, I would like to go ahead and make those, because my guess is they may be reaching out to these delegates to see if they will be switching their commitment. That's obviously only on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, they do not have to give who they're committed to. So at this point, nothing has changed, but it's very possible that it could, because the department's well aware of the fact that some of these candidates have withdrawn, but they don't know if the delegates are going to withdraw or if they may just change their allegiance.
Switch allegiance.
Type of deal.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do I have a motion to give approval for the ballot?
I'll make a motion to approve the ballot.
I'll second the motion. I do have a question. I'm trying to
Sure.
figure this out.
Sure.
So the corrections were only on the Democratic side.
At this point, yes. So on the Republican side, we had one, is it Stephen Michael Wolf, withdrew as a alternate delegate to the convention.
Okay.
So he's off. So it could be on either side if the withdrawals that we receive. But at this point, yes, it's the major ones that we had for
So on the
president.
Republican side, his name would still show up as a delegate? Is that what we're...
Stephen Michael Wolf?
Yeah.
So he is running as a delegate, but he withdrew as an alternate delegate.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the primary ballots as presented. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, your ballots are approved, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next order of business would be the request to move 4 polling locations. Sorry about that. Oh, that was a very good shot. Those 4 locations I have listed for you would be in the First Ward Middle, moving from the Good Sam. I think we've talked about that before. Moving to the Lebanon Church of the Brethren. In the Lebanon 6th Ward, St. Benedict's Parish Center has asked us to find a new location. So we were looking at the Lebanon Community Health Center. There was a question, actually, was on the radio this morning because someone was concerned that they we were having them go into a location where patients were being seen. That's actually not the case with the community center. What it actually is you would go right into their lobby. We would have signs posted, and immediately to the right, there's a meeting room. And that's where the voting would be. And so we had picked that place because of the accessibility, parking.
Parking's good.
Yeah, we've always, Commissioner Phillips knows, the parking tickets had always been an issue in the 6th Ward, so hopefully it would solve some of those issues. Bethel, Mount Zion, basically just going from their engine house, which is just right up the street, down to their social hall, which is actually going to give us a lot more room, a lot more parking, accessible, really nice place. But the address changes, so I thought it was important to have it as an official change. And in South Annville, we've talked for a while now about the space concerns and the parking concerns at the community building. I did go over to the Fontana Chapel. I know there's some concerns. First of all, the space is great there. The parking in the back is wonderful. Handicap, everything. Accessibility is really, really good. I know there was some concerns brought up about getting out of there, turning from Fontana, I believe it's Fontana Avenue, onto 322 Horseshoe Pike. But one of the things that voters have to remember is you could actually, when you come out, because everything's going to be in the back, if you turn right onto Fontana Avenue, that will actually take you the back way, I guess, and you can eventually then get onto, is that 241? I live over there. 934, sorry, 934. So that you could completely avoid that intersection of left and right, right there at the chapel. You could actually go right and avoid all that. So I think this would be a great move and change for us. The police department has been really good about helping with parking and stuff there, but within a presidential, even with the changes with Act 77, I think it would be a really good place for us to move to. So those are my recommendations for the 4 moves.
Okay, can I have a motion to change the 4 polling?
Also move.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions?
I'm sorry, I should make one point. So basically what I'm asking for today is just your approval to basically post it for 30 days. We'll have press release, comments, and then I will come back beginning of April, and then it would be official.
Okay. So the motion should be just to post these, folks. Are you okay
For
with that?
comment period?
Yeah. All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Anything else?
Yes. So I've also emailed you, and I'd like to go over some of the changes that I would like to propose for the primary general election being held on April 28th. And the first one being that I would like to change a little bit of how we have our voters vote in a way. So we would still do the check-in, we would do the eligibility, we have little cards that show that once somebody checks in at a polling location that they're eligible. Here in the primary it would be Democrat, Republican, so we can give them the right ballot. What we would like to propose to change to is to just give people a paper ballot, but have a sign posted saying that if they would like to use a machine, that they can, they just need to request it. Kind of moving away from choice of asking us every time, first of all, because it would save us time at the precincts, and I can tell you from everything that we look at as far as lines at polling locations, the lines occur at check-in. So the check-in, because it's a manual process with a book and somebody has to find the name, that's where the lines occur, and then that would go into also where people would then receive their ballot. So one of the things we also noticed with the last 2 elections using this voting system is that we were also then having lines at machines, but no lines for the booths for someone to use the paper. So we kind of just wanted to streamline it, still give people the choice, but have them ask instead of us asking every time, because we think that would make it a little bit faster for us. And would eliminate some of the lines and complaints that we get when we were asking people there would not be enough ballot marking devices at precincts, and then they would tell us that we need to get more, and we had that discussion that we're not going to purchase more. So I think that also would kind of, I wouldn't say solve that problem, but kind of address that issue. Did you want me to keep going, or did you want to talk about these one by one, or?
No,
I
I
have-
think we can deal with them as a block.
Okay. The second would be that we will be procedural change in the general election. We give the voter decides to use a ballot marking device or a machine, they would be given their ballot and they would insert it and do everything on their own. We can't have them do that in the primary because the party needs to be selected on the machine. That needs to be done by a poll worker. So procedural, what we would do is if somebody selects and decides they want to use a machine, then a poll worker would take their ballot, activate the ballot marking device, select the party based on that card that they were given, and then the voter would do the rest of the process. So there's still privacy, they're not going to see anything, it's just activating to make sure they're getting the right ballot. That needs to be done by a poll worker, not by the voter. Third thing is I'm going to purchase security shields, or privacy shields, I guess we would call them, that will go over the sides of our scanners. One of the biggest complaints that we had the last two elections is privacy, and people could see, especially our poll workers that are at the scanners themselves, see how people vote. I will take responsibility for that. We were very concerned that people would have problems with how and what to do inserting their ballots, and so I had them be right there, omnipresent. Hindsight, probably a little bit too present. So what we're going to do now is we're going to train them to move back, have the privacy shields, have the individuals go up. There is instructions right on the screen on how to insert their ballot. If they need help, the person will be there to help them, but they won't be, boom, right there. They'll be back behind. And then the shields will be there because that way will help, I think, give them more of a feel of the privacy that they were kind of searching for with their ballot. As you saw in today's ballot, the Democratic ballot is only one-sided, so they can flip that over and obviously put that in anyway into the scanner. The Republican ballot does have one contest on the back. We will be providing folders for individuals that if they want to take a folder with them at all times and they can carry their ballot so no one can see it till they get up there, scan their ballot, hand the poll worker their folder. So we took the privacy issue very seriously and we're working towards that. I think a lot of it had to do with training and just maybe adjusting some of the ways we were doing some things, so that's a big one that we're going to do with those. And then obviously making sure we have our polling places set up correctly. I think we've kind of in the last two elections made sure that we've addressed any of those issues, make sure that the way they're addressed and set up in the polling location is as private as possible. So with this primary election, I am going to propose that 5 of our locations receive 2 scanners. So what that means is those locations, those are our biggest locations as far as registered voters, with Cornwall North thrown in the mix because of the Cornwall Manor. They will have 2 scanners, so basically what that means is when the voter comes up, instead of just one place they need to go, they will be 2. So they can use either one. That will help alleviate the lines in those places as far as when they're done and then scanning. Because one of the things that we heard is some people felt like there was a line, or could be a line, once they're done with their ballot. So we think that addresses that in those precincts. And with Act 77, vote at home, absentee, and the number that we expect to receive from that, starting here in the primary, we think that will alleviate some of the other issues in some of the other precincts where we think 1 scanner should be sufficient. I do have 6 scanners that our rovers have at all times, so at any point if we get some feedback or we hear something where we know that we might need to put an extra scanner, we can actually do that on election day. And I have it listed on so it's Cornwall North, North Lebanon Middle, North Lebanon West, North Londonderry East, which is Londonderry Village, and South Londonderry North, which is the Community Bible Church. Those are the 5 that will have 2 scanners. I already requested the 4 polling place changes. And last but not least, due to Act 77 and the mail-in absentee ballots being sent, are going to now not be sent to the polling locations, are going to be centrally scanned. My recommendation has been that we would not start canvassing those ballots until Wednesday morning. It has to be a public meeting. We can't actually even touch them until 8 o'clock on election night. From the sheer numbers we're looking at, we're at almost 500 ballots right now received in our county, and technically it doesn't start until next Monday. So,
You have the ballots back.
so, well, we have the applications, 500 already processed.
Yeah,
So
you just approved the ballot.
received, so the state opened the online application about 3 weeks ago. We made the decision, anybody that heard about it, read about it, had an application, sent it in to us, we processed it. So they're basically in queue waiting for the ballots to be ready. Nothing's been sent, obviously, because these weren't ready yet. But they're in the system just kind of waiting, and we already have 500. So we had 1,100 total in the primary in 2016. We're already at 500, and we're at what, 50 some days out from. So we're going to way break that record. So with all that said, the canvassing cannot start until 8 o'clock on election night for those ballots. There is other things that we need to be doing at 8 o'clock on election night besides canvassing ballots, and so I don't think we'll be able to finish and do everything we need to do in our office on election night the way the law is currently worded. And I would like to make that a public meeting on Wednesday so that we can adequately address those ballots, canvass them, and then scan them with the central scanners that we have. I can tell you throughout the Commonwealth, that is how most counties are going to do it. And we all have been working with our representatives and trying to change that. And I can tell you, I talked to Representative Diamond yesterday, and they do have a bill that's going to be pending that's going to come out after the primary that will address that for the general, because we do want to be able to scan these ballots on election night. It's just the canvassing, opening, that will take a lot of time that we just won't have time to do on election night. So that is my last recommendation, and I thank the board for your time. And
Do we need to act on those?
Yeah, two things on, well, one thing, just to go a little bit further on that last one, that'll occur in here. So we'll block out
Okay.
this room, probably not schedule a workshop that Wednesday afternoon, just leave this room open because it's, as he said, a public meeting. This is where you conduct computation, so it only makes sense, I think, to do everything in here for as long as it'll take. Yeah, and to your question, I would say, yes, these seem to be policies, for how to establish and set up the polling places and how you're going to conduct the canvassing of those absentee ballots. So, I think the adoption of those procedures and policies by the election board would be good.
Commissioner Litz?
Yes, I have a comment and a question. I'd like to thank you for your hard work on this. It does not go without notice.
Thank you.
And especially at the last election, the biggest comments I had, which I think I shared with you, was the fact that the privacy at the scanners needed to be addressed, and you've done that. Thank you. The other question that I had also evolved from the previous election, and that is when you walked into a room and there were all of those privacy shields, it was not evident that there was a voting machine there, and we spent a lot of money on those with the promise that people would have that option.
Mm-hmm.
I just appreciate that you're going to have the sign, but has any thought been given that people know the machine is still there? But has any thought been given to establishing two lines? So if somebody wants to use the machine, they could line up there. And if somebody wants to use paper ballot, they could line up there. Because if somebody that wants to use the machine, it's 20 people back till they get there and that machine sits empty. Does that make sense?
It does. And it does occur or will occur, but first of all, it has to go through the correct process. So they have to check in. So they have to go to the books, the poll books, and then once they're checked in, eligible voter, and get the card, voter ready card, then they have to go to a central place, which is the person that has the ballots. It has to be that way because that person is responsible for all the pre-printed paper ballots and the ballot cards that activate the machines. So if they do choose to use a machine, then yes, they could go to another place where there could be a line for those machines. I think the key word is that they'll have to ask, and then they'll have to. We can provide the fact of, is there a machine available? Is there a wait? And then where will they need to wait?
I was going to say, but to have them waiting 20 people before they get to ask is the point. Can they go to the line for machines?
No, they have to check in. So I have to make sure they're eligible voter first before they can ever get. So it's kind of, if you kind of look at it,
poll book, or
right?
otherwise you'd have to have two sets of lines with two sets of poll books.
Right. And I don't want to ask them ahead of time because I only have the set of poll books, and that's where everybody needs to go. And we do separate those lines based on alphabet. and on the experience of our poll workers to know how many books, like we're getting calls now, someone saying, hey, can I have 3 books, can I have 4 books? Because they know how many people come into that precinct, and then what they would like the split to be, because, you know, it's real easy for me to say it should be A to L, N to Z, but experience, they know it needs to be A to G and whatever the split would be. So that still has to occur because I need to make sure they're an eligible
I
voter.
hear you. Let me ask you this then. Does the person who directs them for check-in have the authority or discretion to say how many are here in the first 10 for write-in? And if they
You mean
say...
paper.
Yeah, paper. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And they are all there, and then is anyone here for the machine because it's sitting empty? And somebody behind them raises a hand, could they go to the head of the line to check in?
No.
I would really.
No, because I think that, I don't believe so, because I think it really needs to be as the people get there. And I think we'll have, I mean, we've had complaints because people are upset because somebody got to go, I think Dawn and I actually talked about this, somebody actually got to go to a specific line based on their alphabet, and it was shorter than the line over here because of their alphabet.
Yeah.
I can't help
No.
what part of the alphabet you are when you get there and how many of those same people are at the same time. I think it only makes sense and is only fair to go as people arrive and check in. And I really want to keep it, because of security of the ballots and security of the election, I think it's really important to almost have that line of you can't get past this into the voting area until I know that you are an eligible voter. And once I know that, then they could go and then we could create the line. But I think it's really important that we do that first, because I think it would cause kind of a lot of confusion. And I appreciate the question because it makes sense, but I think it creates confusion if you're going to have, okay, these people here, these people there, or, oh, you get to go to the front, because then I think people would probably want to do that, go to the front. I just think it would cause confusion for the
So
poll
the
workers.
machine line would grow immediately.
Right,
because
which
it's
already
empty.
kind of has,
Yeah.
based on what people were used to. And I think one of the things that we talked about was a lot of times people didn't even realize, actually kind of the opposite of what you're saying. People immediately wanted to go to the machine and didn't realize, oh, I could go to paper and there's no line. Because once they realized there was no line, then, oh, I want to do paper. So,
And that's my point. It's going to take either changes at the poll or a lot of education so that people know they have choices.
right. And I think the way we do that maybe is through a press release. Just say, hey, you know, these are the types of things that we have at the polling location. One of them is that you can vote by a machine. You just have to ask. But I think people also have to be aware that they would have to wait because we only have so many machines. I think where we ran into, and I will take credit for this mistake, is that I think people, when we said choice, they immediately thought we would have enough that they would never have to wait. And I think then when we said choice and then they had to wait, then they got upset because they had to wait. And so that's kind of why we were
I also
repositioning.
think it's a good idea to mention in the press release and maybe even on your signage that the reason we have those machines is to accommodate ADA,
Right.
people with disabilities.
Mhm.
That, in my mind, I never intended it to be a choice. That it's really to accommodate the folks that can't vote with a paper ballot.
Well, and I think part of the thing too is there are people that just struggle. They don't really have a disability, but they just struggle with
Well,
the
yeah.
paper ballot. And I think it's good
That's
that
a
we
disability
offer.
problem.
And I agree that those specific machines are for having people with handicaps or disabilities. But when we interviewed the people selling us the machines and we were going to buy machines, we came to an agreement that people could vote on these machines. So it was for both. And our poll workers, our dedicated people who were here were really set on having machines. Our judges of election, whoever all was here when we were doing those demonstrations. I don't want to deceive the people and do a bait and switch. I want them to know they still can vote on those machines.
And I am recommending that. They can still do that. It's just that how we do it kind of changes just a little bit.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the procedures and processes put forward by our director?
So moved.
That's second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
No, but I'd like to ask, not on this motion, but I would like at some time to meet about electronic books. And,
Sure.
And the consolidation we talked about the other day, just so that we all have a, you know.
Sure, I
common-
can schedule something, like, you mean after the
Yeah,
primary?
oh, yes,
Oh,
after the
sure.
primary, yes.
Thank you.
No, let's put it in right, maybe like a day before.
And I think we already have 2 practice runs under our belt, which a lot of counties don't have. So
Correct.
that was good that we got on it.
Absolutely,
quickly.
thank you for that, and thank you, being able to do that in November and then having the pleasure of getting to do another election in January.
And that's
gave
Commissioner
us
Litz said,
to,
I do appreciate the communication, and, you're on it, so we appreciate that very much.
I think all of us want to convey that message, Michael.
Thank you.
We're very pleased with your efforts. So.
Yep.
Thank you.
With all that said, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So ordered.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.